My name is Daniel, and 3 years ago, my entire world fell apart in the span of 90 seconds. I had come home early from a work trip that got cancelled at the last minute. I remember standing in the driveway, smiling, thinking about surprising my wife, Rachel, with a bouquet of flowers I had grabbed on the way. I had no idea that in a few minutes, that smile would be the last genuine one I wore for a very long time. The house was quiet. Too quiet. And something in my gut told me to walk slower than usual toward our bedroom door. When I opened that door, I didn't just find my wife with another man. I found her with my best friend, Marcus. The man who stood beside me at our wedding. The man I trusted with everything, including the keys to our house for emergencies. I stood frozen, flowers still in my hand, unable to process what my eyes were showing me. Rachel screamed. Marcus scrambled off the bed, stammering apologies that meant nothing. The flowers fell to the floor, petals scattering like the pieces of the life I thought I had built. I don't remember walking out of that room. I don't remember driving to my brother's house that night. What I do remember is sitting in his driveway for almost an hour, unable to cry, unable to speak, just staring at nothing. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair, it was about how long it had been going on without me noticing. Later, I would learn it had been 8 months. 8 months of lies, of working late, of Marcus conveniently showing up whenever I traveled for work. 8 months of living a lie disguised as a marriage. Rachel called me 47 times that night. I didn't answer a single one. The next morning, she showed up at my brother's house, mascara streaked down her face, begging me to let her explain. I told her there was nothing to explain. I had seen everything with my own eyes. She fell to her knees in the driveway, sobbing, saying she made the biggest mistake of her life and that she would do anything to fix it. I remember feeling nothing but a strange numbness, like I was watching someone else's tragedy unfold. Over the following weeks, Rachel didn't stop trying. She sent letters, she showed up at my workplace, she even convinced my mother to talk to me on her behalf. She said Marcus meant nothing to her, that it was a moment of weakness fueled by loneliness during a rough patch in our marriage. A rough patch I didn't even know we were in. I asked her why she never told me she was unhappy. Why she chose betrayal over honesty. She had no real answer, just more tears and more apologies that felt hollow against the weight of what she had done. I moved into a small apartment across town. It was the loneliest year of my life, but also the year I started rebuilding myself. I threw myself into work, started going to therapy, and slowly began remembering who I was before Rachel. Marcus, for his part, disappeared from my life completely. No calls, no apologies, nothing. I later heard through mutual friends that he had left the state, unable to face the shame of what he had done to a friendship that had lasted over 15 years. Rachel filed for divorce papers herself 6 months after the incident, saying she didn't want to force me into anything I wasn't ready for. I remember feeling almost relieved when I signed them, like closing a chapter that had been bleeding onto every other page of my life. We didn't speak for almost 2 years after the divorce was finalized. I heard she moved to another city, started a new job, tried to rebuild her life just as I was rebuilding mine. Life, in its strange way, moved forward for both of us separately. Then, almost 3 years after that day in our bedroom, I got a message from Rachel. She said she needed to tell me something important, something she had been carrying for years, and she was ready to face it no matter how much it hurt. I almost didn't reply. Old wounds have a strange way of still throbbing even after they've healed on the surface. But something about the tone of her message felt different. Desperate, but honest in a way I hadn't heard from her before. We met at a quiet coffee shop, the kind of place with soft lighting and no chance of running into people we knew. Rachel looked different. Older. Tired in a way that wasn't just physical. She told me she had been in therapy for over a year, working through things she never had the courage to face during our marriage. Then she said the words that changed everything I thought I knew about that day. The affair wasn't a spontaneous mistake. It had started because Marcus had manipulated her during a period when I was struggling with undiagnosed depression and had emotionally withdrawn from our marriage without realizing it. She said Marcus had positioned himself as the person who understood her, while I was distant, buried in my own silent struggles that I never talked about. It didn't excuse what she did, she was firm about that, but she wanted me to understand the full truth instead of the version I had built in my head for 3 years. She confessed that Marcus had actually threatened to tell me lies about her if she ever tried to end things with him, which was part of why it dragged on for as long as it did. I sat there stunned, my coffee going cold in front of me. 3 years of anger, of building Rachel into a villain in my mind, and now I was hearing a version of events far more complicated than betrayal alone. It didn't erase what happened. It didn't make the pain disappear. But it forced me to confront something I had avoided for years. My own silence during our marriage, the walls I had built without noticing, and how loneliness inside a relationship can quietly open doors that should have stayed shut. Rachel didn't ask for forgiveness that day. She said she didn't deserve it, and she wasn't there to win me back. She just wanted me to have the truth, even if it came 3 years too late. I appreciated that more than I expected to. For the first time since that day in our bedroom, I didn't feel anger boiling under my skin when I looked at her. Just a strange, quiet sadness for both of us in the years we lost to silence, betrayal, and unspoken pain. We didn't get back together. Some wounds, even when understood, don't fully close the way we want them to. But we did become something neither of us expected. Two people who had hurt each other deeply, finally able to speak without venom, finally able to acknowledge the parts we each played in the collapse of something we once thought was unbreakable. Rachel eventually moved on, and so did I, both of us wiser, both of us more careful with the silences we allow into our closest relationships. Looking back now, I don't tell this story for sympathy. I tell it because I know I'm not the only person who has walked into a room and had their entire reality shatter in an instant. I know I'm not the only person who built years of anger around an incomplete truth. Betrayal is never simple, and pain rarely comes with clean edges. Sometimes the person who hurt you the most is also carrying wounds you never saw, and sometimes the truth takes years to catch up to the story you've been telling yourself. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this: silence kills relationships long before betrayal does. I used to think Rachel destroyed our marriage in one moment inside that bedroom. Now I understand it started long before that, in all the conversations we never had, in all the feelings we buried instead of shared. I share this story not to justify what happened, but to remind anyone listening that the truth is rarely as simple as the moment you catch someone in the act, and sometimes, healing means being brave enough to hear the rest of it.